There is a specific kind of anger that has nothing to do with logic. You've seen it. A man hears the words electric vehicle and something tightens in his jaw. Not frustration, not skepticism. Something older, something more personal. And if you ask him why, he'll give you reasons. Range anxiety. The grid can't handle it. The batteries end up in landfills. Mining lithium is worse than burning gasoline. Some of those arguments have merit. Most of them are partially true. None of them are why he's actually angry. That's what this is really about. Because human beings don't form emotional responses to technologies, we form them to identities. And when a technology threatens an identity, the rational mind goes looking for ammunition after the emotional verdict has already been delivered. To understand what's happening with electric cars psychologically, culturally, at the level of the self, you have to go back to the beginning. Not the beginning of EVs, the beginning of what cars actually meant. The internal combustion engine arrived at a particular moment in Western culture, the late 19th century, early 20th. A period of industrialization, of masculine frontier mythology, of a world being built by men with tools, grease under their fingernails, and something to prove. The car didn't just offer transportation. It offered control, literal, physical, mechanical control over something powerful. You pressed the accelerator, you felt the response, you listened, and the engine told you something. There was a conversation happening between man and machine, and that conversation had a vocabulary built from vibration, heat, resistance, and sound. Carl Jung wrote about the concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you actually are, distinct from the crowd, distinct from the inherited roles assigned to you. For generations of men, the car became one of the primary arenas where that individuation happened. You learned to work on engines because your father did, or precisely because your father didn't. You chose a car that announced something about your values, your taste, your willingness to accept discomfort in exchange for character. The machine was a mirror, and the mirror told you who you were. This is not trivial. This is not consumerism dressed up in psychology. This is how identity actually works. Erik Erikson, the developmental psychologist, described identity as something that must be continuously negotiated, not a thing you find once and keep, but a narrative you tell about yourself that must remain coherent over time. The car, for many men in the 25 to 55 demographic, is a load-bearing wall in that narrative. Remove it or alter it too abruptly, and the whole structure feels threatened. So when someone tells a man that the future has no manual transmissions, that the future has no exhaust note, that the future has no oil changes, no engine warm-ups on cold mornings, no mechanical intimacy at all, what they are actually saying, whether they mean to or not, is the skills you developed, the knowledge you accumulated, the rituals you performed, the identity you built around mechanical understanding, none of that matters anymore. That is not a product announcement. That is a psychological assault. And here is where it gets more nuanced, because not everyone who dislikes EVs comes from the same place emotionally. There are different layers to this resistance, and they don't all belong to the same conversation. There is the purist, the man who genuinely loves internal combustion the way a sommelier loves wine. The sensory experience is the point. The sound of a flat 6 at 8,000 revolutions per minute is not incidental to the driving experience. It is the driving experience. For him, an electric car is not a worse version of what he loves. It is a categorically different object that happens to have 4 wheels. His objection is aesthetic, not reactionary. And it deserves to be taken seriously, because aesthetic depth is not a small thing. It is one of the few domains in modern life where mastery still means something. Then there is the identity conservative. Not politically conservative, necessarily, though there's often overlap, but someone whose sense of self is organized around a coherent worldview that has been stable for decades. He drives what his grandfather would have recognized. He values continuity. He trusts things that have proven themselves over time, and he is deeply suspicious of anything being marketed to him as progress. His resistance to EVs is an expression of a broader resistance to being told that the things he values are outdated. Psychologists sometimes call this system justification the tendency to defend existing social and cultural arrangements, not because they're perfect, but because stability itself has psychological value. And then there is the man who is afraid, but would never use that word. He has spent years acquiring mechanical knowledge. He knows engines. He can diagnose a problem by sound. He has helped friends, impressed colleagues, established competence in a domain that felt genuinely his. Electric motors have almost no moving parts. There is almost nothing to learn, almost nothing to master, almost nothing to pass on. The electric car doesn't just replace the internal combustion engine. It makes his particular form of expertise irrelevant. And irrelevance, for a man who has organized his identity around mastery, is one of the most threatening psychological experiences available. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs places esteem competence, achievement, respect near the top of what human beings require to function well. When a technology threatens to erase the domain in which you've achieved that esteem, the emotional response is not irrational, it is proportional. None of this means the resistance is correct. None of this is a defense of any particular position on climate, on infrastructure, on policy. This is not that video. What this is an honest account of why smart, capable, thoughtful men find themselves viscerally opposed to something they can't fully explain through logic alone. Because here's what almost nobody in the EV conversation is willing to say out loud. The way electric cars are being introduced culturally is almost perfectly engineered to provoke maximum psychological resistance from the exact men who loved cars most. The marketing frames EVs as the end of something, as the responsible, grown-up alternative, as the choice for men who have moved beyond the adolescent need for noise and feeling. It codes internal combustion as a guilty pleasure, as a phase you should be getting over, as something that real forward thinkers have already transcended. And men who built their identities around mechanical depth hear this and feel not persuaded but condescended to, not included in the future, but quietly told their past was embarrassing. Psychologist Leon Festinger's work on cognitive dissonance is useful here. When a person is confronted with information that contradicts a deeply held identity, the dissonance that results is uncomfortable enough that the mind will work hard to reduce it, not necessarily by changing the identity, but by discrediting the source of the challenge. This is why rational arguments about emissions or total cost of ownership often land on deaf ears. The man isn't processing a product decision, he's defending a self. And yet, and this is the part worth sitting with, history is full of men who successfully transferred their sense of mastery from one domain to another. The craftsman who learned to read blueprints when hand tools gave way to machines, the navigator who adapted when GPS arrived, choosing to understand the technology rather than resent it. The audiophile who discovered that digital formats, once mastered, had their own depth. Mastery is not tied to a specific technology, it is a disposition, a way of engaging with the world that demands understanding rather than passive consumption. The men who are going to navigate this cultural shift with their identities intact are not the ones who pretend they don't feel the loss. They're the ones who feel it clearly, who acknowledge that something real is ending, and who choose to bring the same rigor, the same depth, the same refusal to be a passive participant to whatever comes next. That might look like learning the engineering of battery chemistry the way they once learned carburetor tuning. It might look like choosing to care about performance figures and suspension geometry and driving dynamics even when the powertrain is silent. It might look like holding onto a combustion engine car not as a denial of the future, but as a deliberate, informed choice to preserve a relationship with a technology that genuinely formed them. The man who hates electric cars is not a Luddite. He is not ignorant. He is, more often than not, someone who loves something deeply and is watching it be replaced by something that doesn't speak his language. That grief is legitimate. That loss is real. But grief is not the same as being wrong, and love for what was is not the same as fear of what's coming. The men who understand machines don't drive them because it's practical. They drive them because for a few moments on a good road, everything that is abstract about life, the questions, the compromises, the accumulated obligations goes quiet. And what's left is just a man and a machine and the conversation between them. That conversation is worth having.